I want to get back to what we have done in the past, which is to record our PLC. So this PLC will be recorded today. Ms. Knight, and she'll be right back. But in front of you guys have a sheet. And on that sheet, on the back, we are looking at the NIET rubric. Now, we are not a TAP school, but we are using the NIET rubric that was introduced to you guys as their best practices. And as we go through the indicators, we'll be sharing with you where that falls in on the Compass Rubric. And so today, you guys, we're going to be looking at the areas of his presenting instructional content and lesson structure and pacing. If you look at the top, you'll see the rating score of 5, 3, and 1. With that rating score, somebody said, well, Ms. Williams, can you ever score a 2 or a 4? Yes, you can, because you may be hitting a few of the indicators, but then you may lack in some other areas, which I will give you an example of. And so looking at that area, when it comes to presenting instructional content, you have visuals that establish the purpose of the lesson. So that means that you have some type of visual representation. So in your planning process, you should be identifying what kind of visual representation you're going to have. If you're going to have anchor charts, if you're going to, you should, everybody by now should be posting their objective as a visual representation or having an agenda to follow so that the students have a complete understanding of what they will see in today's lesson. Can you share your rubric with her?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Preview the organization of the lesson. So you should be going to your board, looking at the agenda. Today, class, we're going to be discussing the 3 branches of government. You're going to create a tree of the 3 branches of government, and then by the end, you're going to do a writing piece for me. So you're giving an overview of the lesson. And then you should also include internal summaries of the lesson. So yesterday when I was talking to you guys, we were talking about how you're supposed to be doing assessments throughout the lesson, or you should have a beginning, middle, and end of the lesson. So you should be creating little summaries as you go through the lesson. And when you get to the end, you're summing up the lesson, or you're asking the students to summarize the lesson. So again, in the presenting instructional content, you need to be, as you're planning, thinking about examples, illustrations. So if you are knowing that you're going to be teaching a lesson on nomads, and you know your students have no idea what a nomad is, you may want to include some pictures. You may want to bring in an extra YouTube video to share what nomads are, if you're going to have any analogies and labels for new concepts and ideas. And most importantly, your modeling. So in your presenting of your instructional content, if you're thinking about a math concept, I would have my anchor chart with the steps of how to complete the problem. I would go to my problem, and I would have my talk through sessions where I'm talking through, okay, I'm moving from step 1, and step 1, I must implement that. Or if you have a writing piece, you may have some sentence stems that if you're going through the IBC process, some sentence stems that you need to model for your students of what is expected for them in their writing. But so again, you're modeling by the teacher to demonstrate his or her performance expectation. If there is a rubric or a checklist that you want the students to read, and if you move through your writing piece or activity, you're checking off, okay, see, I've done that. Concise communication. You are concise with the information that you're providing. Logical sequencing and segmenting. All essential information you're getting to the main point, and not irrelevant, confusing, or non-essential information. So we're going to watch a video on just a presentation of delivery of content. So delivering instruction.
Although teaching involves a great deal of planning beforehand and additional assessment work after the fact,
the delivery of content is perhaps the most important component of effective instruction. Clearly, if the students are not taught, their probability for success is not maximized. Responsibility for the effective delivery of instruction is the responsibility of the teacher. As discussed, pre-planning is an essential practice for teachers, setting them up to deliver instruction in a fluent and engaging manner. When teachers are uncertain about what is happening or stutter through a lesson unprepared, the students quickly disengage. Also, as discussed, the teacher's job is to develop a lesson that maximizes the student's probability for success. Success is maximized when teaching examples are relevant, logically sequenced, and when the teacher uses examples as opportunities to engage students in the content. All good lessons should result in student success with multiple opportunities for teachers to provide positive feedback to the students. When positive feedback opportunities are not present, it should be a sign to the teacher that instruction is not working. Teacher modeling of content is an effective strategy, but there are effective and ineffective ways to model. Similarly, while most would agree that examples are important, not all understand that the selection and sequencing of effective examples is a key task of an effective teacher. Simply using examples from the book and allowing students to interact with examples does little to maximize the probability of success. Sometimes people assume that it's better if students experience only natural examples in the real world. While it's true that natural examples are important, those examples that occur naturally in any particular teaching environment are unlikely to represent the full range of examples that might be encountered in the real world. For example, we could teach a student to cross the street using streets only around the school, and that is highly naturalistic. But the real world has a wide variety of street crossing signs, signals, and protocol. To train only with those examples that occur naturally in the learning environment is horribly short-sighted. Effective teachers consider all the examples that a student might be confronted with in the real world, and then find ways to bring those examples into instruction.
So basically, in your planning process, you're going throughout the lesson plan and you're identifying key areas to present to students. So for example, how they shared in the video, that it's on a basic level if you're bringing in the real world concept of how to get from home to school by saying, when you get to the street, turn left, then turn right. But it's stepping it up a notch, that when you get to the end of the street, you're going to see crossing lines in the middle of the road. But before you cross, don't forget to press that button that allows that little white man to come up, because you cannot walk until you see that little white man come up. So thinking about all the misconceptions, all the ideas, all the things that students may struggle with. I shared with the last group that in the planning process for a seasoned teacher, it may be a little bit easier for you to make those connections and bring in things that students struggle with the year before, whereas a novice teacher just coming in, they don't know what the student may have struggled with. So you have to learn your particular students a lot more, but then that's where the planning comes in of you guys working together. So for example, Ms. McElgin may remember that, well, I know when I taught that fraction lesson last year, I had to have my anchor chart, but then I'm gonna add just some key things for my students to understand that they didn't understand that you had numerator and denominator. And so I'm gonna add the D for down, so they'll know that that denominator is down at the bottom, because they really struggled with that concept. And so bringing that piece out for the students. So now let's talk about some of the things that you guys do in your planning process that may demonstrate in the areas of 3s and 5s. Like, how do you develop your visual representation? It's done, lab?
I look at the test.
Mm-hmm.
I start with anything I do, as presenting examples for that particular, what they were talking about, anything I do, I start with the test.
Mm-hmm.
And I work backwards from there.
Okay.
And I see what I want them to, what they need to know to be able to do the test, to make an A or B on the test, to master the test, and then I work from there. And I give them specific practice and examples based on what I need them to do at the end.
Okay. All right, and that's good to start with the end in mind. That's a good practice, because at the end of the unit for ELA, there's this large topic that you have to write to. So if you have not looked at the end, you wouldn't break down those bits and pieces in that content information that they need to know and they need to have. Anybody else looking at the presenting instructional content, what are some things that you do to plan for that area of the lesson? What about thinking about your small groups? When you think about your small groups, how do you plan those out to make sure that the students are going to have concise understanding or having some type of illustrations?
Well, we group them based on ability, and then like with the ESL kids in the class, if I know the Spanish, I'll put that there, or I'll put a picture there so that they understand. Because they can see it and understand it, but they can't hear it and understand it.
So that's a good practice too, supporting based on 504s, ability levels, what the students are gonna need. Ms. Dunlap, you wanted to share
Yeah,
something?
even when I taught traditional, what I would do is I would pick out the focus state, like skill of that week or whatever. For like if it was ELA, main idea. So in small group, I'd be making sure, so maybe for Monday and Tuesday in small group, I'd reinforce the main idea, and then I'd spiral back around on Wednesday and Thursday to maybe what we did last week, our focus, or the week before that, and bring that back so that they don't forget. Because I find that they forget. If you don't keep reinforcing those stuff that you've already taught over the last month, they forget. So it's just easier to pull it in that way.
All right, so now we're going to look at the rubric, looking at our NIET rubric, presenting instructional content, lesson structure and pacing. We're going to watch a few videos and we're going to rate that particular teacher that we see.
Okay, here's today's lessons. Anybody remember what we did yesterday? Addition. Okay, let's review. What is 5 plus 3? Who knows it? 5 plus 3. Who knows it? Hey, you
Where's
know
your
it?
popsicle stick?
Sorry, 4 plus 3. 3.
6.
No, are you kidding me?
So is this a common?
7, 8, 9. Are you kidding me?
So notice she keeps saying, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? But you haven't even presented the kids with anything to check their thinking. What do you notice about her learning environment?
It's very bland.
Exactly. It's nothing there. What else do we notice about her board?
What?
We don't even know what the lesson is about. She's talked about, can you tell me what we talked about on yesterday? In what? Science, social studies, ELA. And I know we have a, sometimes I know I've done it in the past where I say, tell me 3 things that we talked about today. Well, no, you have to be specific with, tell me 3 things to summarize our lesson on the 3 branches of government today. You know, and she's really upset with the kids when she didn't even set them up. There are no anchor charts for them to refer back to the addition. I'm even just happy the kids even knew addition because she was like, tell me what we did yesterday. And so she's getting mad with them because they don't know it, but she didn't set up her environment to have any of these indicators.
She could have put up some dots or something.
Exactly. Gave them a method or a strategy or something. She just,
I mean, you could even
This
be
she in his
really,
face.
you could even go in deeper before she even started talking. The kids aren't sitting up straight, like they're not in like the setting the environment, like
Or they don't have any paper. And
they're not
it's
sitting
math.
up straight.
exactly.
She could have had them use
I
that
mean, I wouldn't even start talking until they started to stand up straight. Because,
And that is I'm glad that you brought that out too, Ms. McElgin, about with math and not having the paper in front of them. Like they have to have a place to work out their thinking. I know that we are online, but I think that we can, set them up in the beginning too, that they are working it out on paper and then transferring it on to online because they need a working space. You're not just gonna get this answer out of your head. You guys, y'all are into it. Go ahead, 4th grade. All right, so moving on to our next example. This is a small group example. Again, we're looking at the rubric, looking at those indicator areas of presenting instructional content and lesson structure and pacing.
The whole time. Now we're gonna read some of these words that we just practiced. Yay. Okay, my turn to read a word that begins with a quick sound. Now, you have to watch. This one starts with a quick sound, so I gotta get right to the next sound, okay? My turn first. Here I go. Pan. Now I'll say it fast. Pan. The word is pan. Let's read this word together. Now watch carefully because it starts with a quick sound. So we have to get right to our neighbor. Ready, go. Pan. Say it fast. Pan. What's the word? Pan. Pan. Now do it without me. Okay, I'm not going to help you this time. Hook it to your neighbor. Ready, go. Pan. Say it fast. Pan. What's the word? Pan. Good job. Your turn to read this word. First you'll say the sound slowly, then you'll say them fast. Watch the pen. Ready, Joseph? Ready, Carl? Mark? He's ready. I can see his eyes. Ready, go. Say it fast. Am. Nice job. We don't need to clap during this part. Way to be ready though, Carl. Okay, now we're going to read another word, and I'm going to start it because it starts with a quick sound. So this is Mrs. Reitman's turn. I'm going to get right to the next sound. Here I go. Did. My turn first, sweetie. I'm glad you're ready though, but let me have a turn this time, okay? Did. I'll say it fast. Did. The word is did. Now, this time do it with me. Ready? Carl, Marky, Joseph, all of us. Ready, go. Did. Say it fast. Did. What's the word?
All right, so what do you notice about her?
She did get upset when they interrupted her.
Where's those little, oh gosh, I'm not a lower grade too.
Those little QBs.
That they go, and they move it, and she's not even doing 3 letter sounds. And then, what are those things called? The
I just thought they like the little
awareness chips.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
little, y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where you, so that they can sit there and do it with her.
So
while
that's what fifth grade said. She's talking about,
yay.
yeah, she's
I don't
talking
even
about
know the
moving or linking to the next word, but she didn't allow them. They could be doing it on their paper. We talked about just the pacing. Like it seems like she's going a lot faster. When she got started with her lesson, did she set any stage for it? She just said quick sound.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Yesterday we talked about quick sound, and we know that letters have sounds, and so that is what, she didn't set the stage. What else do you guys notice?
They did something like that.
In the beginning, she was like, he's looking, I know he's looking because his eyes are on me. So she said what being engaged looks like.
Mm-hmm. Another opportunity, I'm sorry, you wanted to share something?
I was gonna say, and maybe she was gonna get to that, but she's just doing it as a group, not letting.
Individualized. Mm-hmm. And another thing that we brought out, guys, is that she missed an opportunity that falls heavily on the Compass Rubric. The students making an adjustment to the lesson. Because what that little boy do, he clapped, and so obviously that's a method, that's a strategy that he had. And so I like what you did there. Let's do that for the next one, all of us. So that would have changed the direction where she could have possibly increased her score on the Compass. So what would you guys have given her? What score? Look, kindergarten right off the bat, after they seen that first teacher, they was like, she get a 5.
Yeah.
And she- Okay. Okay.
Probably give her higher than that.
Maybe a 3.
So they say it did fall within
The
which,
students were engaged.
okay.
Even
Yeah,
though it
we're
wasn't a
engaged.
math lesson, they were still engaged in what she was doing. They wanted to do it with her.
Mm-hmm.
But she can't check their understanding anyway.
And
If they had letters or chips or something where she could watch them each make the step, like she doesn't really know because
Yeah.
she's looking down.
And then that's another thing too, like we always have to make sure that we refer back to the indicators and what the indicators are doing. The kids they are definitely engaged. The other little boy, he kind of shut down after she like, look, we don't need that clapping, but he still continued to participate. But again, like just making sure you refer back to the rubric, the indicator. She did do a lot better than that first person we watched.
So what was
So
her
we
score?
said in between the 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3. All right. So this next group, Miss Knighton picked out this particular video, And I just love how it brings out the planning process and collaboration more so than just looking at the indicators on the rubric. I just love how that, because, and we'll talk about that later.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to continue talking about ratios. We've touched on it. We touched on it a little bit yesterday. Today we are really going to get into it. Everybody has a graphic organizer on their desk. We are going to be working on this together, filling this out, really getting into the definition, the meaning, and different ways of writing ratios. Okay, and I'll let Ms. Sultan take it from here on what you created to kind of kick it off. Okay, perfect. All right, we have our Cornell notes. Okay, so our Cornell notes always are starting off very focused. Okay, we've maybe touched on the topic, but we want to teach you the concept and we want to teach you strategies to understand how to write them or how to solve problems.
The model of special education I use is an inclusion model. We co-teach, so all of our special education students that.
So looking at this and that first teacher, what do we notice?
She lays it all out.
She
We
does.
did this is what we're going to do next. And so you're able to follow, what's
It relates to what we already did in this way, so.
What does her kids have on their desk?
They have their graphic
They have
organizer,
notes.
they're ready.
I assume they're gonna use them as notes when they do their own independent work, so.
The only thing I would say that she may possibly be missing is that whole modeling piece, but we didn't, of course, see, it doesn't show like the whole entire thing. But if they are gonna use that graphic organizer on the desk, like, is she gonna model what they should be answering? Like, does she have her own particular, because she didn't have any visuals herself, the kids had them.
Yeah.
But is she going to have, how you guys, in that booklet that we make for you guys, sometimes the kids have their charts in front of you, in front of them, but do the teacher have hers maybe blown up or on the board so that as the students are writing or as you guys are discussing, the writing is going on the board? I've seen some of you guys kind of do it like as a transparency where you have that document camera. Also, if you don't have a document camera, you should have document cameras. You should have, I got y'all a speaker system, and for those of you that don't have the hearing impaired, I know Ms. Taylor, have you passed them out any yet for those that have? Okay, so I still have like about 7 left that I purchased, and then we're purchasing 8 more, so everybody by the end of the year should have one. And so I can pass that to you. I know Ms. Malter was supposed to label the bag, so you're just getting off the point with that. So that can be added. Anything else that you noticed about that particular lesson? Okay, let's.
Ooh, she had an associate.
She did. She had an extra person.
That
Look, she had an extra person. I know some schools do that. I think Mayfair does it. Geo Prep has a pair, but it's in the sense of like how you two are set up, and even still, you two are set up that way. But it also talks about like how they plan together, how they sit down and they talk, and they all have the same thing in common, or the same rules, the same expectations. I talked a little bit earlier about 3rd grade, how they were all everybody had they were talking about a raise. Each person had their anchor chart, but I think one person in particular may have had a little bit more on their anchor chart. And so we want to make sure that we're creating the same experiences for all of our students in that manner. So planning, to me, I thought it was very, very important in the process. Y'all got to get together and hey, what are you doing? How are you going to do this? Because again, you have your season, you have your people that have gone through the curriculum, like done that. She knows like what you can take out of that math lesson, what you can move past a little bit, but how the district kind of skips over. I know 1 grade level they skipped over a couple of units to get right on to the lesson. So she's skilled in that aspect. Let's finish
are
watching
in
this.
the mainstream classrooms. And so we have to be able to, meet their needs in the general education classroom. I would say the reason we have a true team teaching model in our classroom is because we spend a lot of time planning. It's absolutely necessary if it's going to be a true team teaching model because we have to be on the same page. We have to both know what we're going to be doing in the classroom on any given day. I help her plan lessons, activities. She plans some lessons, activities, so it's a very, very collaborative effort in terms of the way that we team teach. All right, here we go. How many push-ups did Jay Ken do? Can somebody raise your hand and tell me how many push-ups did Jay Ken do? Clayton? 17. 17 what? 17, I'm gonna put PU for push-ups, not like PU. PU for push-ups, okay? Can somebody tell me how many jumping jacks did Adam do? Alfonso? 18. 18, I'm gonna put J for jumping jacks, okay? If we wanna write this as a ratio, remember a ratio is comparing two quantities or a relationship between two quantities. How can we say this ratio is 17 push-ups and 18 jumping jacks? I'm as much a part of the teacher in this classroom as Mrs. Moore is, and fortunately we have that rapport and, we are on the same page about what we do. So I don't ever feel like I'm stepping on Mrs. Moore's toes, but I think that comes along with us planning together, putting the time in, and knowing each other well. And communication is like the biggest thing in almost everything. So, the students feel.
All right. And so what about this last piece? Anything you noticed from there that may have fell under the presenting instructional content, lesson structure and pacing? How was her pacing?
It was good, the kids got right to work and then they're moving through to make sure that they're doing the right thing, or on task, or fixing. She missed conceptions, yeah.
And they kept on, involved.
And I'll let Ms. Knight, she shared quite a bit as we moved through the PLCs today. And so I'll allow her to kind of go into giving you guys some tidbits that she shared with the other groups. So Ms. Knight.
Okay, I'm sorry, my mind went to the classroom back there. Okay, so a couple things that I noticed from watching this is that to not lose instructional time for those who have to pass out materials, like even in Ms. Butler class, we took the buckets, I call them buckets, but we took the bins and we placed them on the tables for the kids, put everything already in there, books, center starters, pencils, whatever that they need, because you lose instructional time trying to pass everything out during class. I mean, that's 5-6 minutes lost right there. That's one thing that I saw. Did you guys already rate her?
That first part of the lesson.
Oh, okay. Another thing, because I'm trying to remember everything I said. Visuals. Even in her class, I saw some visuals with the co-teachers here, but they weren't able to charge per se. But like Principal Williams says, you want to have something that's completely relevant to what you're teaching at that particular week, that moment, those 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. Now, you will have some anchor charts, but you're going to have to leave up until it's time for a leave. I get that. But you do want, if, for example, in Eureka, we're talking about ratios, as she was, instead of her giving them the definition, she could have already had an anchor chart with all of that already on it that she could have went and referred right back to in front of them in that moment, which could have been a little bit of a 2-minute teachable moment for those kids at that time. And they wouldn't have probably needed the definition, because if I had the anchor chart up there, they would have been seeing it the entire time. So they would know what a ratio is with the example of it underneath, and the stems that she wants them to use and answer her back in math, because math can have stems as well, okay? And remember, I told y'all last week in those journals, if they're in the journals, that means every time they're opening your math journal or your ELA journal, it's there. They see these stems every day, okay, or just about every day, so they know your accountable talk already, basically. So they should be answering you back with restating the question and, answering the question. You have to build that kind of stuff into your lesson. And in a lot of these videos, they had good points, but remember, the whole point of us going through this rubric with you is so you can see what you're doing and what you're not doing, so you can, kind of fix it up a little bit. So when Principal Williams and AP Jackson is coming in, they just check it off. basically if you're doing what you're doing, if you're not doing.
Interruption. We need all transfer bus riders to report to the office at this time. Our orange bus riders, you need it to the office. Our orange transfer bus riders, you need it to the office. At this time, we're gonna stop everything and read. Stop everything and read. Drop everything and read.
And even with stop everything and read, I told Ms. Butler, it's okay for them to read, but you know what they can be doing? Working on that homework. They can be doing what they missed in workstation. They can actually go back to their workstation. And workstation does not have to be at this particular time. If they didn't finish, they can literally come right back around to it at the end of the day. But that's up to, obviously, to the teachers, to you guys. Those are other little tidbits to make sure they have. You can even pull a small group. You don't have to lead silent dismissal. You have kids in there that can literally read that call list out, like, you know, Johnny Joe, it's your turn, you in call, you know, you in 4. They don't need you for that. You can be literally pulling somebody else, Susan Q, because she just did not understand introduction to your IBC. So that's what I'm saying, just using things like that in your classroom, that will make a world of difference.
And that's it. To summarize, guys, you saw today that planning is very important. It's key. The collaboration of the planning part is key so that you guys can be on the same page and giving the students the same experience. Within our lesson, we want to make sure that when we're planning, we're identifying visual representation. How we're going to bring in exemplars and examples for students. If we need to have some illustrations available for students that may not understand, or our ESL learners, or students that may have an IEP 504, any type of accommodation. What are we going to use to support when we're presenting, making sure that we are modeling. So if we have an anchor chart that we're working from to complete a problem in our I do, we are thinking through our anchor chart. I know step 1 says do this. Look at how I'm doing this for step 1. I'm going on to step 2, looking how, and then also modeling if you're writing, starting those stems with the IBC, maybe marking IBC at the top corner of your paper, and then checking off, I've done my I, here's my introductory right here. This is what you should be doing. You're concise with your communication. You're not all over the place. You know, you're direct with your presentation, with your message. You're summarizing the overall lesson. Today, class, we're going to talk about the 3 branches of government. In our lesson, we're going to create a chart. At the end of the lesson, you're going to do a writing piece. Once you get to the end of the lesson, making sure that you're concise with your directions. Not just tell me what we did today, but give me 3 things from what we learned about arrays, or actually create, giving step-by-step on creating an array, and then do me a number sentence. So that is it for today, guys. You guys have a good one.
So about what to bring tomorrow?
Oh, tomorrow, guys, I want to get back into the habit of looking at our student work and grouping it into the sense of high, medium, and low. And so I know you guys probably sent home tests, but if you guys did any activities with your students, bring in the student work tomorrow. We're going to rate them high, medium, and low. Identify what the students can do really well, and then begin to create activities and exercises or reteaching the things that they are struggling with. You guys, thank you so much. Okay, let me cut this off. Oh, I don't know how to.
I'm gonna come in there and show them how to.
Oh, now you want to take,